Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about how I would go about fixing aggro. And just like a little disclaimer, I don't think the format's in a necessarily bad spot. I actually quite enjoy this format, and I think it's a relatively good format, just given all the diversity in the meta. There are a lot of different decks you can play, a lot of the colors are pretty good, but the only reason I'm talking about this stuff is because Bandai announced a wide-ranging ban list coming out on July 17th. So I've been doing just a wide range of videos talking about how I would go about implementing those changes. I've talked about Dark Broly, Yellow, Red, and now I'm going to be talking about aggro in today's video, what I would do on this quote-unquote wide-ranging ban list. So if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, go check out the Patreon down in the description below. Once the new ban list drops, we'll be looking at a completely brand new format, especially when you factor in set 14, so you'll want to stay up to date with all the competitive talks over there. Hope you guys all had an awesome 4th of July. Let's get started. All right, so when it comes to aggro, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I really think there should be a philosophy when it comes to aggro decks, especially in Dragon Ball Super, which plays a lot like Magic in terms of like the land mana system and how you play cards. There are definitely a lot of factors from other games involved as well, but the one comparison for this game to Magic is that this game doesn't have summoning sickness, right? So in a lot of cases, the game is kind of inherently aggressive, where any card can just come down and attack immediately. So I really think there should be a philosophy attached to aggro. A lot of people will tell you that in Dragon Ball Super the dice roll matters a lot, and I only like half agree with that. I agree with that when one of the decks involved in a given matchup is an aggro deck. Going second against an aggro deck is really tough sometimes, and I really think that the philosophy around aggro should be that turn 1, turn 2 kills, meaning your opponent, the opponent of the aggro player being on 1 or 2 energy, that's pretty degenerate. Now, don't get me wrong, turn 1 kills are always stupid, but turn 2, a lot of decks can set up some decent defenses. Like, there are some decks out there, like some really defensive mid-range decks that can defend well on 2 energy, but if you're playing, I don't know, some sort of control deck, some other sort of deck that doesn't necessarily have a lot of great defenses, like, the main defensive thing I think about is, like, blue-yellow. Blue-yellow can do a lot of really good defensive things on, like, turn 2, but, I don't know, if you're playing green or red and you have just, like, a really vulnerable turn 2, I can see that, you know, that just seems a little bit degenerate, a little bit unhealthy. So I think the goal for an aggro deck should really be to end the game around turn 3. And I think Janemba Bewitching Blow is a good example of a card design like that. Like the Janemba Xeno chain that came out in set 12 really doesn't allow you to go off until you have 3 energy. And yeah, you could cheat that a turn earlier if you play Xeno Unison, but I like the way this is designed, that you have to have 3 energy to go off. Now obviously this chain is not the best aggro chain in the game because we just have faster aggro decks, but another problem with this deck being that sometimes setting up your skillless cards can be a little bit tricky and a little bit too much setup. But anyways, I like the philosophy behind this archetype, where it really encourages you to get to turn 3 and then pop off. A lot of the aggro decks we have right now, some have potential to kill on 1 energy or 2 energy, and that's just not really a great gameplay experience. Let's talk about it strategy by strategy. The first one we're going to talk about is Reboot Gohan. This leader is not overly dominant. I think there's a few reasons behind that. Yellow is a pretty decent check to this, but the problem with that, and I play a lot of Yellow, so I have a lot of experience with this, but the problem even with playing Yellow against Reboot Gohan is, like, let's say you're playing Zamasu Super Combo. Well, especially if you're going second, you have a really high chance of dying on your second turn, their third turn. So how many Zamasu Super Combos were you realistically able to draw by that turn 2, right? Same thing with Release from Evil. Great side deck card against this strategy, but you have to side deck a high number, like 3 to 4, if you really want to make sure you see it early enough to actually have an impact in this matchup. So that kind of just goes along with what I want to say, where Reboot Gohan just offers a really unfun player experience, and I really feel bad for new players. Like, there have been so many times I've tried to get friends of mine or new players to get into Dragon Ball Super, and they come across strategies like Reboot Gohan that just make the game appear really, really unfun for them. And I think that's a really negative thing the game has going for it. Besides that, even in competitive play, when you're up against Reboot Gohan, it can feel really one-sided, especially depending on the deck you're playing. Again, if you're not playing Yellow, you don't have all that much that can interact with this leader-based aggression, but even in Yellow, it comes down to the fact of, can you draw the cards or not, right? So I just think that this leader and this strategy promotes really, really unfun gameplay. I would love, of course, let us know what you guys think about in the comments. I know there are players that enjoy playing this deck, but even if you're a Reboot Gohan player, do you enjoy it? Do you think this leader should stay around? I'm really curious to know what you think, because yeah, the deck's not unbeatable, and again, it doesn't really dominate the format in a tier 0 type of way, but it can again feel really one-sided. Another card that people talk about when it comes to quote-unquote balancing this deck is Feat Kamehameha, and how it should either just be banned or errata to a Goku only leader. Such a weird thing that this leader says Goku on the card. Like, I understand he's there with the Kamehameha, but really I thought it was like a mental image of Gohan in the show, just, you know, thinking his father was there. And of course it's probably Goku's spirit, but that's just stupid lore stuff. The case with the card is, why does it have Goku on it? I don't know. Feat Kamehameha obviously has a stupid interaction with this card where you can triple strike crit your opponent for, what is it, like 40k when you get the plus 10k. It's really obnoxious. So yeah, you could ban Feat, but I always like to look at these cards, like these card combinations, and look at which card breaks the other. Feat Kamehameha was realistically doing nothing in the meta until this leader came around. Like, you could play it in like a Clash Goku deck, for instance, where your leader gains double strike, but it wasn't nearly as daunting in that type of strategy. So it's clearly Reboot Gohan that breaks Feat Kamehameha. And if you were to ban Feat Kamehameha, those huge triple strikes on that second or third turn in the game where your opponent has no time to set up their defenses can still be super oppressive. Yes, it will be nice that you actually get those cards to hand as opposed to putting them in the drop area, but I really just don't think this leader promotes a lot of fun for either player involved. So my thing would be to just ban Reboot Gohan and just be done with it. Next thing here, we're talking about Vegex. You guys have probably, if you guys have been around the channel for a while, you would know my stance on this leader. You just gotta ban it. The leader offers way too much advantage. Every single black leader in the game that's not like, you know, Dark Broly or Makikabora, essentially the black leaders that are meant to just be played with like these small swarmy overwhelm strategiys, they're all gonna pale in comparison to Vegex milling 5. They all pretty much mill 3 for the most part. Vegex mills 5, so you're getting better overwhelm setups for either higher cost overwhelms or even just making sure your lower cost overwhelms are more consistent. There's the slew of time agent cards that get milled into play when your leader's a Black Sand. You have a Spring Kai of Time, you have Trunks, you have Vegeta, and you have the Unison. Obviously those cards are going to be infinitely better in Vegex, where you have a higher chance to actually get them into play by milling them. As long as Vegex exists, leaders like SS4 Goku are just going to be unplayable. You have leaders like Black Mass Sand, which actually, funnily enough, saw some top cut success. I think it was in last format. But realistically, when you compare those things to Vegex, Vegex is always just going to be the superior leader. This leader got, what, 4 different addresses on the ban list. Like, you had Bibbidi, you had the Trunks Lead Descendant, you had the Universe 3 cards, you had Turles, the Unstoppable Ghost Warrior. All those cards had to be hit. And again, those cards were all really strong, so it kind of makes sense. But all those cards had to be hit just so Vegex could be at a fair power level. Like, a lot of people will say things on the ban list get addressed and then become completely unplayable. Vegex was definitely not one of those cases. It took 4 different hits just to get Vegex to feel like it was somewhat fair. But as long as Vegex exists, again, leaders like SS4 Goku and other Mill 3 Black aggro leaders are not really going to be playable. And Bandai is just going to have a really tough time designing new black cards because Vegex can very easily break them if they gain advantages in the drop area or what have you. So again, I think Vegex needs to go. I really feel like most people agree with this stance at this point. So again, I would love to know what you guys think in the comments below about this one. Moving along here, we're talking about Sinchonron aggro combo. This is another one with like the Reboot Gohan having Goku on it thing. Like, did Bandai intend for this to be like, did they intend for Feat to be useful with Reboot Gohan? Did they intend for a 1-drop 8 cost and a 1-drop 4 cost equaling 12 to just let you drop Cell Xeno on turn 2? Did they account for that? I really just don't know. I hope not, because if they did intend for it, it's a pretty degenerate combo. And it does require you to draw a 1 of secret rare that somehow the Sinchonron player always just seems to have on turn 2, right? I promise you, if you guys play against it, you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so this is a really dumb interaction. Like, why couldn't Nova be a 3? Why couldn't Omega be a 7? I don't know. But anyways, what I would like to see happen in this deck, just to again eliminate those potential turn 1, turn 2 kills that are just unfun for everyone, it would be an errata to Cell Xeno that would just add a energy cost to its successor. Nothing drastic, just I would put a 2 green / 2 yellow cost on Cell Xeno, and what that would do is it would just make it cost a little bit of energy to actually put Cell Xeno down. I've heard another good errata that you can't even play this card until you have at least 3 energy, and I don't necessarily mind that one either. I do think it's a little dumb that it costs 3, and I'm sorry if you guys are hearing fireworks in the background because I'm recording this on 4th of July, so that might be in the background. But anyways, yeah, Cell Xeno, give it a little bit of energy cost. Stop allowing these decks to drop this degenerately huge card on turn 1 or turn 2 mostly, or turn 3, backed up by a Swift Retaliation Cooler. That can just feel really bad, and it's a really bad player experience in my opinion. Next up, we're talking about Red Broly. Now, don't freak out when you see this. Red Broly is not really doing too much in the meta at all. The only reason I bring this up is because a lot of players that I really respect have brought up this point to where if you address the ban list and you addressed all the really powerful decks, Red Broly might have a window to come back in and just be really, really oppressive. And I can see a universe where that happens. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen. It totally depends on what they do with the ban list, which I don't think is going to be as overreaching as they may have implied or as people think. But yeah, I do see a world where Red Broly can creep back in to a pretty annoying degree if a lot of these other decks are killed and or addressed, right? So the thing Red Broly is, hits you really big with crit guys and hits you really fast, and it rips your hand apart at the same time. So in my how to fix red video, I did propose a Piccolo new ruler ban, and if that was to go into effect, obviously Red Broly would see a pretty significant hit from that. That's just a free 20k double striker that they get to play, and if you remove that card from the equation, would be a pretty nice nerf. But if you were to do something like maybe Errata SS Broly Combat Evolution to a similar thing that it has in its own swap skill, or maybe this would be a better Errata on the actual 4-drop. But anyways, basically doing something that would not allow you to play Broly Combat Evolution until your turn 3, and then the 5-drop still not allowing you to play the 6-drop until either your opponent has 3 energy or you have 4 energy. Just something similar that prevents the SS Broly Combat Evolution from coming out on that turn 2, just being a huge 30k body that your opponent just typically can't deal with. But that's just more of like an iffy. I'm not going to be too upset if Red Broly doesn't get hit because, again, it hasn't been doing all that much in the meta. But anyways, guys, those are my thoughts. Hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, leave a comment down below with your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.